Now, Madam President, the House has sent us a bill that would be an easy yes vote for every senator in this chamber, an easy yes vote. This bill continues government funding, prevents a needless shutdown, and extends a key health insurance program for vulnerable children for 6 years. Its content is bipartisan. There are no provisions that any of my Democratic friends oppose. It's a simple step that will let us continue bipartisan talks without throwing the government into disarray for no reason. No reason. Americans are surprised this is even a debate. I don't blame them. I share their surprise that some Democratic senators see the prospect of a government shutdown for more than 300 million Americans, see a possible lapse in health coverage for 9 million vulnerable American kids, and are tempted to hold all of that hostage, until we resolve a non-imminent problem related to illegal immigration? The surprise is compounded for anyone who listens to the public statements of my Democratic colleagues and takes them at their word. Less than a week ago, the senior senator from Colorado was asked whether it was prudent to shut the government down over the issue of illegal immigration. He insisted it was not. Last month, my friend, the senior senator from West Virginia, had this to say, that I'm not going to make 300 million people suffer because I can't get the process working the way it should. The junior senator from Virginia put it even more clearly. This is what he had to say. He said, I will exercise every bit of leverage I can, but if there's a vote that would lead to a shutdown, that is where I draw the line, he said. And not more than 2 days ago, the senior senator from Missouri said she wasn't interested in drawing a line in the sand because, quote, that's how negotiations get blown up. Well, I hope their votes this evening reflect those recent statements. Now, some of my colleagues say they are reluctant to support this measure not because of illegal immigration, but simply because they're tired of continuing resolutions. They point out that this is a suboptimal way to fund our government, especially our warfighters. That is precisely why Republicans worked hard all last month and all this month, to try and negotiate a long-term spending caps agreement that would bring stability back to government funding. But, Madam President, the Democratic leadership made it clear they would not be serious about these spending talks until this unrelated immigration issue was solved. So now, unfortunately, a continuing resolution is the only option our armed forces have this evening. Let's not pretend for a moment, not a moment, that our men and women in uniform and their families benefit from a government shutdown. This is how we got here. My Democratic colleagues' demand on illegal immigration at the behest of their far-left base have crowded out all other important business, crowded it all out over the issue of illegal immigration. And now they're threatening to crowd out the needs of veterans, military families, opioid treatment centers, and every other American who relies on the federal government, all over illegal immigration. There's no imminent deadline facing the DACA program. Congress has at least until March to arrive at a bipartisan solution that is acceptable to Republicans, Democrats, and the person who needs to sign the bill, the President of the United States. Do veterans, opioid treatment centers, and the families of fallen soldiers need to suffer until a compromise is reached? Democratic senators' fixation on illegal immigration has already blocked us from making progress on long-term spending talks. Now that same fixation has them threatening to filibuster funding for the whole government over illegal immigration. Now, years ago, my friend, the Democratic leader, described how irresponsible it would be to shut down the government over the issue of immigration. He said it would result in, quote, governmental chaos. That's my friend, the Democratic leader, a while back. But earlier today, on the floor, he insisted that we put every other American priority on hold, put it on hold, until we resolve immigration. Only then, he said, can we work on defense spending, or domestic spending, or CHIP, or disaster relief. All of that on hold over the issue of illegal immigration with no imminent deadline. Only needs to be addressed by March. Well, that's apparently how our Democratic colleagues rank their priorities. It's not how I would rank mine. I don't think it's how many of our colleagues on either side would rank theirs either. But we'll have a chance to find out in the coming days. It's certainly not how the American people expect us to act. I think the American people clearly would not expect us to act this way. The bill before us is an opportunity to correct course. It is a chance for my colleagues to remember that we represent millions and millions of American citizens. The American people want the federal government open for veterans, military families, and the vulnerable. They want food and drug inspections to continue without interruption. They want death benefits to continue to go out to families of service members killed in action. They want children in low-income families to continue receiving health coverage through SCHIP. They want a sensible compromise on immigration. But they cannot, Madam President, for the life of them, understand why some senators would hold the entire country hostage until we arrive at a solution to a problem that doesn't fully materialize until March. Military families, veterans, and children benefiting from the SCHIP program don't need to be shoved aside. Don't need to be shoved aside while we continue good faith negotiations. So we ought to pass this resolution, and we ought to get back to work.